Really great having you all here. This webinar is hosted by Findec Sweden, Hub for Fintechs, and the ASEAN Financial Innovation Network based in Singapore. We will kickstart the webinar today with my colleague Tom, who is the Director of Innovation, Scale Up and Expansion at Findec. Tom, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Finn. So let me kick off directly with sharing my screen here. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Excellent. So, just like a brief introduction for those of you that doesn't know Findec. So Findec is Sweden's FinTech hub, and we're based here in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden. And we have been established since 2019. And we work around not only with FinTech, but also with RegTech and InsurTech. We saw that there was like a gap in the Swedish market here to sort of find ways to collaborate between the different stakeholders. So our mission is first of all, is to boost the ecosystem here in Sweden through knowledge sharing, networking, different kind of collaborations. This is a private initiative, and it's a non-profit organization. And today it's financed through partnerships and also a bit of government support. And today we have around 170 members. So why did we do this then? We can see, Sweden is doing really well in fintech and financial services. There's a lot of successful companies. Probably the most well-known today is Klarna. It's the highest valued fintech in Europe and top 2 in the world. But a lot of those initiatives are private initiatives. So it hasn't been so much of a collaboration as a lot of outsiders think. It's more like there's a lot of great entrepreneurs in Sweden, but they get very little support and sort of the kind of network that we see that could also boost for more fintechs to succeed. And of course, we want to create business opportunities, and we want to try to create cross innovation between different verticals. For example, connecting someone from the telecom industry with someone from payments. So we can see very clearly that the whole industry is changing quickly, and more companies are moving into something related to financial services. You probably noticed that in Asia as well. And then also we want to get more business intelligence, not only from the community here in Sweden and the Nordics, but also from other stakeholders from around the world. We want to know what's going on. And we see a lot of new business opportunities coming out from this. And what we're trying to do now is also, we run an accelerator program here together with PwC and IBM. So we're trying to help these startups to go quicker to the market, to sort of launch their products and services. And a lot of those companies that are scaling, they are also looking for talent. And it's quite difficult to find people here in Sweden these days, because there's a lot of tech companies doing really well. So that's what we're trying to find and help them with. And we think this could be achieved by network, collaborating with different organizations from around the world. And same as I mentioned before, It's good to also get knowledge from other parts of the world, because once you're in your own market, it's very difficult to see from the outside. And also the next step would be also try to get funding for these startups. So we're working with a lot of different things at the same time. This is like an overview of how we see ourselves, Findec's role in the ecosystem. So we're sort of like in the middle trying to connect the different stakeholders. As I mentioned, we work with startups in our own accelerator program, but we're also in contact with many of these scale-ups. They can sometimes be very helpful if they, for example, been working in one country and they have a lot of knowledge about that. They can easily share that to the other fintechs that are looking to go into that country. Then, of course, we have these bigger banks, incumbents, that we're also collaborating with. For example, it could be how do you, if you're a startup in fintech, how do you work with a big bank? It could be quite complicated sometimes. So that's where we have a lot of people from the banks helping us with intel and sort of like trying to navigate how it works in different banks. Then also we work with the regulators, sort of a lot of, in fintech financial services around rules and regulations. How does that work? What can we do? Sweden is also quite known for being like a cashless society. Most people here haven't used cash for a number of years. So it's always interesting now to look at what the central bank is doing. If they are going to launch like digital currency and what's going on. And I think Sweden and China are the top two there in the world. Then, of course, there's lots of other organizations that we work with as well. For example, Business Sweden, they have offices around the world, helping companies to grow their export markets. And also I have a background there myself. I worked there for several years in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam. PVC, one of our partners, as I mentioned. We also work with academia and research, because it's interesting to know, not only from a business perspective, but also where sort of are the challenges in developing new techniques when it comes to deep learning, artificial intelligence. And also we work very closely with SSE Business Lab, Stockholm School of Economics, and trying to see what we can learn from them when they manage their companies from an early stage. And quite a few successful companies are coming from there, like I mentioned before, Klarna, another company called iSettle is also coming from there, acquired by PayPal a few years ago. And we also try to see what sort of other hubs and incubators are doing, so we ourselves can learn to see what works best for us here in Sweden. And we also try to run a lot of these events, not so much now during COVID. We have a few, of these webinars and online events, but I think now it's looking a bit brighter. So I think post-COVID now, here in Sweden, a lot of people already got the vaccine. So hopefully it opens up, at least locally, after summer. So then we're going to try to have more physical events. We had quite a few with different embassies here. And we also had a lot of delegations coming from other countries who want to know about how we work with fintech, financial services. And Sweden has done really well when it comes to like creating unicorns. So Stockholm is second after Silicon Valley in the world per capita in creating unicorns. So you can see there's lots of things going on here all the time, and we are trying just to sort of connect the different dots to make it easier for these different stakeholders to communicate in an easy way, because there's a lot of knowledge here, but sometimes people don't connect really well, and that's where we see that there's a big use for a fintech hub. Then also, we try to attend international events. Money 2020, Singapore Fintech Festival that one of my colleagues ran last year. But if the market is opening up again, hopefully now in 2022 globally, we will of course attend these bigger events with our fintech companies. So last but not least, why are we interested in Southeast Asia? We see an opportunity for Swedish FinTechs to scale in the region. There are very, very few FinTechs operating in Southeast Asia and in Asia in general. So there's a big gap here, which we're trying to close, because a lot of Swedes usually look at Europe because that's our home market, and then they look to the US, whereas we are trying to push them more to Southeast Asia, because we think there's enormous growth opportunities, and with the Swedish technology, I think there will be lots of great opportunities to collaborate with the stakeholders in Southeast Asia. As I mentioned, a lot of people here don't think about Asia, and that's why we need your help as well in trying to sort of create an understanding of what's going on out there in the market, because it is the fastest growing market in the world. And especially now, I think a lot of countries in that region are also accelerating these sort of digital services and payments, because COVID now has actually increased the digital transformation around the world. And last but not least, I think APIX could be sort of a good first step for Swedish FinTechs to understand a bit more about Asia, and also to sort of engage with counterparts in the market, just to get like an understanding of sort of what is going on. That's very briefly from me. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you, Tom, for the presentations. And next, we would like to give AFIN, or the Asian Financial Innovation Network, a Managing Director, Manish Diwan, the opportunity to show and present more about the organizations and what you're looking for, who you're looking for to collaborate.
Thanks, Tom, for the introductions. Am I audible?
Yep.
Okay, so I will share my screen now. Just as there is a very particular reason why APIX was formed at the very beginning. What was the idea behind APIX? And that idea essentially is summarized in this one slide here. If I talk about FinTech community members who are there on the call today, and otherwise at large, the community, there's very limited access available for them. And that's primarily because of few reasons. One very critical part is the credibility of the FinTech. A lot of financial institutions think twice before, extending their hands to join and work together and collaborate with a 10-member team versus, the big tech, right? Because they think twice as to whether the FinTech will be there tomorrow or not. What kind of product updates am I going to get? Will they be able to scale along with me, right? Will they be able to move from 1 million to 2 million to 10 million to 100 million as I move along? So that was one challenge. The other critical challenge that the FinTech community faced on the flip side was there were extremely long sales and prototyping cycles. It takes 6 to 14 months. Our research tells us 6 to 14 months to close a sales deal, 15, 20 meetings just to do one prototype exercise. Now imagine somebody who is playing in the KYC field, for example, which is perhaps one of the most common use cases in any bank's digital transformation journey, is to first, get the onboarding fixed on the digital side. Now imagine if one KYC provider had to go to each and every bank in the geography and outside the geography, it would be practically impossible, right? And even after we come through these challenges, the ratio of POCs actually becoming a productionized product was only limited to about 10 to 20% cases. So 80% of them will still go waste. So you would spend 16, 14 months, 12 months trying to negotiate your terms into the POC, do so many meetings, travel, spend almost 150 to 250,000 USD to secure a POC and still perhaps land with nothing in hand. And these were the reasons why APIX originally was conceptualized to ease out these processes. APIX is world's first open innovation cloud platform. Now, what we have done is that we have created a whole ecosystem of services to help financial institutions and fintechs collaborate in a fail-safe environment, which is cost efficient, which takes care of a lot of pains, the friction points which are there in the pre-procurement process. You know, all those meetings, trying to do NDAs, trying to showcase what you can do without actually ever meeting somebody, without actually signing a contract, a commercial contract. APIX, in the heart of APIX is the sandbox, the IDE, the integrated development environment, which helps take care of the need of creating infrastructure. You know, creating infrastructure for a POC was a big challenge for the banks, because when they would go to their CTOs and their tech organizations, they would be told, you know, come back after 3-4 months because I have BAU activities to take care of, right? And around this sandbox, we have created a global fintech marketplace. We currently host close to about 500 fintechs on the marketplace. We also have created a data layer because we realized the marketplace was taking care of the discovery part, where it was difficult to discover the right set of fintech. So we created the marketplace. Data was another critical friction point where banks, the innovation managers were taking a lot of time to navigate internally to give data for POCs. If you don't have POC data, then you are never going to accomplish that task any which way. We also provide a solutions catalog for fintechs to come and showcase their goods and services on the APIX platform. And then, of course, there's a growing community, Findec being a part of that community. APIX is built for collaborations. It is built for whether you are a core banking fintech, whether you are a chatbot provider, whether you are a data analytics guy, whether you are a payments provider. It's built for you to collaborate with a host of different types and shapes and sizes of financial institution, whether it is a retail bank, a commercial bank, an insurance company, system integrators, and even look for investors. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. If I look at it from a bank's point of view, whether you are an emerging financial institution, small guy who's trying to make a mark, you could use APIX to defend turf against larger banks and technology companies. Digital transformation with cost efficiencies, because cost is a very critical part in a smaller organization. And of course, you know, if you're working in a much rural economies, then to ensure that you have this agent enablement with the high touch tech interface. If you are a large financial institution, you're focused on growth, automation, and also continuous innovation to differentiate amongst competitors. APIX could be of use to both sides of the spectrum. APIX allows you to innovate at the speed of digital. It is allowing you to search and test, to stay updated on what's happening on the fintech side, to look for growing list of partners, to test APIs, because we are called APIX, which is API exchange. So we allow you to test APIs for fintechs from across the world. For speedy prototyping, deploy POCs in a matter of days, a low code, no code IDE, a built-in core banking system. So what we did is that in the latest upgrade of APIX, now APIX is equipped with what we call as the APIX digital twin, which essentially replicates it, built on the Findec core banking system. So when a fintech wants to do a test and trial of their own product, or they want to work with any other financial institution, you could use 62 inbuilt out-of-box APIs available for you to test and try and create your prototype. Also, we have provided 1,000 customers data with 10,000 rows of data around CASA, lending, and so on and so forth, which could help you test and try your codes. We also have a virtual hackathon platform, which helps you identify the right set of problem statements, truly democratizing the way that you discover solutions and digitize at scale. By becoming a member of the APIX platform, you get to build your own profile on APIX. You get to access the community of APIX FinTechs. You get to publish your APIs on the platform. You test and try APIs. Like I said, you can use the 62 out-of-box APIX Twin APIs to run your POCs in a production grade environment, data sets to use, and then the APIX IDE. And we have 3 very powerful functionalities that are coming up very, very soon, which is called the APIX prefab solution, the APIX good fintech credential, which will essentially allow you to create a profile for yourself and be able to share a trusted credential with a prospective customer, whether an FI or an investor, to share your information with them, and also an APIX fintech research platform. And these are some of the big names who have used APIX over a period of time to create their proof of concepts. Some large global organizations and some very small organizations as well. So APIX is truly democratizing the way collaboration happens today in the world. In terms of the hackathon, you can publish problem statement, you can update your brandings, you can create FAQs. We have seen a lot of interest in the hackathon from our financial institution partners who are coming over to essentially, it's another step in how you discover solutions. And we have completely productized this. It's as simple as setting up your LinkedIn profile. And these are some of the hackathons that are on that have happened in the past. We are currently running the Global FinTech Accelerator 2021, which is around green finance. We are also a couple of days back have launched the Financial Alliance for Women, which is around the women economy. Some great hackathons right now running on the APIX platform, and I encourage all of you to come visit us and see if that is of something of interest to you. And over a period of time, we have been able to productize how APIX is. Currently, APIX is operating in 3 different zones, if I was to call it, or 3 different domains. One was to accelerate identification of gaps in solution. For that, APIX Search, APIX API Check, and the APIX Hackolysium, which is the hackathon platform, do the job. The other was to optimize deployment of POCs and pilots. That's where the APIX Sandbox IDE comes into play. The APIX Digital Twin is completely, truly revolutionizing the way proof of concept are built with its own open source core bank data and APIs. And then we are looking at Q3, Q4 release of prefabricated solutions, which are essentially pre-built customer journeys by putting together 3 or 4 different fintechs who can come together to create a full customer journey. For example, a digital lending, for example, SME onboarding, SME lending, some kind of a rec reporting, so on and so forth, could be put together, powered by the digital twin on APIX, and sold as a composite product. And then last but not the least is providing trust with the APIX good fintech credential, the fintech research. And we already launched the APIX Oxygen, which is the engaging which is the industry expert panel that we hosted last year during Singapore FinTech Festival. And how this all pieces of the puzzle come together. We help financial institutions define and look at what is the opportunity. We help discover using the APIX Hackolysium. We also help you shortlist by APIX Search and by using the expertise that has been built over a period of time from the APIX platform. We help you dry run the prototype faster using the APIX Sandbox, leveraging the deep digital twin as the pre-built APIs there, and the APIX API cart, which we will be launching very, very soon. And to sum it all up, we help you decide as to which of these solutions that you have actually acquired are actually going to make a difference. We will help you decide by using the Good FinTech framework. And all this can come together on a deployment side, where you can use the APIX SI services to help deploy prototypes into production. APIX is managed by AFIN, which is ASEAN Financial Innovation Network. We are a not-for-profit entity with our public founding members, including ASEAN Bankers Association, IFC World Bank, and Monetary Authority of Singapore. So our genesis lies in policymakers, regulators. So we understand this trade and this whole collaboration piece a lot more than many others would do, because we come from the regulator side of things. So we see things very differently, not just as a commercial model, but also from a regulatory point of view. Our corporate founding members include AMTD Foundation Hong Kong, MasterCard, and Nityo. Tech partners include Percipient and Brancas. And what we also run is a very vibrant set of people who work with us on the strategic advisors, which includes the Singapore Fintech Association, MasterCard, Brancas, which is a fintech based out of Philippines, Bank of New York Mellon, Amazon Web Services, AMTD, and Experian, which is the largest credit bureaus in the world. And if you have any more questions, happy to take them on the Q&A side. Otherwise, you could write to me at manish@afin.tech. That should cover my presentation for now.
Thanks, Manish. So now with a better understanding of what AFIN and APIX is, we would like to share and also reiterate that FinTechs funded Series B and below, this is the best time for you to join APIX. All you have to do is to activate your free membership by filling up your profile 100% when you onboard your FinTech. Okay, so now we will move on to the next section of the webinar, where Majid Madan, CEO of Digital Consultancy Services, will provide us a walkthrough on the APIX platform, as well as the prototype solution project. And this will actually demonstrate how diverse fintechs like yourself across the world can actually come together and work to solve real world problems on the APIX platform seamlessly. So Rajiv, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. Thanks, Manish. So just before I start, just to give you the perspective, whatever Manish talked about just now in terms of design and discover and kind of put the whole prototype together and decide and then implement, I'm going to walk you through that whole journey with real world stories. So I'm going to share my screen, and then we will we'll take it from there. Display my. All right. Essentially, when we were discussing the collaboration between Findec Sweden and AFIN, we were thinking how we could put this into a real world scenario and how we can enhance this collaboration. And one of the ideas that was really coming around was, why not take a few fintechs from Sweden and a few fintechs from AFIN ASEAN and see if we can build a prototype onto the APIX platform. And so this is what we have come up with. And one of the things I'll share at the end is how everybody else can participate in this journey. So what we did was, we said that let's create, in order for us to have a meaningful collaboration, one of the things Manish mentioned was the whole fact that there is a sandbox on APIX where fintechs can use their APIs and collaborate with the financial institutions as well as among themselves. And so what we have done is, we have got together a few fintechs from Sweden and a few fintechs from ASEAN APIX. And we are putting together a prototype on the APIX sandbox. So if you look at the picture, we have Cover Security from Sweden, Centiglobe also from Sweden, and Kivra. These are the three quite popular fintechs in the Swedish fintech community. And we are working with them in collaboration with Hyperverge, Mambu, and iXseed from the Asian team. And we are then also working with a system integrator, because as you know, as Manish also mentioned, you have to put all these things together, and there has to be a person that glues the whole solution together. And so we are working with IDBI Intech. IDBI Intech is the technology division of IDBI Bank in India, and they have a huge technology division. So they have done multiple integrations with multiple systems for the whole bank. And so with that experienced team, we are going to put together a prototype for what we call as a white label digital bank. And why do we call it that? Because this digital bank can be used by any bank who wants to launch a digital offering. And this is primarily for, if you see the banks in some of the Asian countries, like Cambodia or Philippines or Indonesia, the tier 2, tier 3 banks don't have access to the resources, both financial as well as human resources, tech resources. And so for them, having a kind of a starting platform from which they can just do some tweaking, add their logos, add their bank names, and launch a digital bank is a great boon for their offering. And so what we are doing is building this prototype with these fintechs in mind, and the SI is IDBI Intech. Now, what we will be doing is we will be using the APIX sandbox, as Manish mentioned, which is a development platform where these APIs will be integrated to create that picture that you see on the right, the bank, the kind of an app that can be deployed for tier 2, tier 3 banks. Now, how are we going to go about it? I'll quickly share with you the journey. So the way we are looking at this is, if I start on the right side with the mobile banking platform, obviously, if you are building a solution for the digital banks, then you need a mobile banking platform. And that's where the company called iXseed comes in. They have a very versatile mobile banking platform, very popular, and we'll use that one. For obviously, as we have to do payments and across customers, we'll be using Centiglobe, who's based in Sweden. We'll use them. And obviously the accounts have to be created in a core banking system. And so the standard accounts that any tier 2, tier 3 bank offers their customers, we'll provide that in a Mambu core banking system using Mambu APIs. Also, we will have to have the customers have to be onboarded digitally, obviously, with a digital bank. And so a combination of the eKYC and biometrics comes from Hyperverge. And using those customer eKYC data, the Cover Security solution from Sweden will tokenize these digital identities and create a digital ID for a customer. And so a very safe and secure way to onboard the customers using biometrics and eKYC, and then digitizing those credentials so that you don't need to have your username, passwords, or your IDs at all. You just use your tokenized digital ID. And this is similar to the bank ID solution that is very popular in Sweden. which made Sweden the cashless country. So we will use that digital ID solution from Cover. And last but not least, we will have a digital mailbox, because obviously customer communication is very important in a digital bank. And so we will have lots of documents and statements, and everything will be using the Fintech Kivra. Now, just to add to all these mix of Fintech partnerships and roles, we have IDBI Intech who will put all this onto the APIX platform. But also, because of the experience that IDBI has with the banking ecosystem, they also have an anti-money laundering solution and a reconciliation solution. So we will bring that into the mix to create an overall ecosystem. And how will that work? And just a little deep dive. We'll have all the user functions, account opening, transactions on the mobile. We'll have domestic and international payments from Centiglobe. The products, savings, fixed deposits, loan products, accounts, transactions will be from Mambu. The eKYC will be done using a card scan or an ID scan and with a selfie. And then we'll have the customer communications, receipts, notices from Kivra. And all this will be handled with a digital identity from Cover. So this is a kind of a global perspective. What I'll do now is give you a snapshot of what we have in mind, and then you will be able to understand how this whole thing works. So just to share each of this. So here we have Absalon mobile banking from IXE. This is the mobile banking solution that I was talking about. And it'll be a generic digital bank where, tier 2, tier 3 banks can put their logo and their name, and you can log in either with the digital ID or the face ID, which is a selfie. And then you'll be able to no username, passwords, and any of those credentials. So you just log in with these two, and your logo of your bank and all your accounts you'll be able to see. This is a customer view, and you'll be able to do transactions from this account to this account and so forth. So it's a generic functions of a typical bank, and that will be available on the platform. For the eKYC and biometrics, as I mentioned, we'll be using Hyperverge, where we can take an ID or a passport and then OCR that data into a eKYC form, and then match that with the biometrics and create that face map for the organization. For the onboarding part, as I mentioned, using these credentials, we create a digital identity, and that will be the digital token from Cover Security, and we'll provide that as part of the POC. The core banking, as I mentioned, will be sitting in the Mambu core banking engine, and Mambu, you will be able to, using the Mambu APIs on APIX, you can create a deposit account, you can create a lending account, and those transactions related to those accounts will be sitting in the Mambu core banking system. And for payments, whether they are domestic payments or international transfers, the Centiglobe solution, which connects all the payment ecosystems, will come in extremely useful, where we can use those APIs for domestic and international payments. As I mentioned, we will also have to communicate with the customer. Okay, if you've opened a loan, if you want to open a loan account, you need to submit documents. In addition, you need to fill out certain or submit salary receipts and so forth. So those parts will have to be managed. At the same time, loan documents have to be sent to the customers. And so all these documentation, receipts, bills, invoices, all that will be managed through the Kivra Fintech solution. Anti-money laundering from IDBI Intech will also be included so that we can look at how these customers are transacting, what is their background. Are they, a sanctioned customer who is already had some issues in the past? Are they a PEP, politically exposed person? So we can look at all those anti-money laundering features in the solution. And then we have the reconciliation. Obviously, all payments, all transfers, all transactions, you have to manage payments across the whole ecosystem, and they have to be reconciled with the data that we're getting from external sources and our own sources. So these, I think, in a sense, are our plan to do this POC on the APIX platform on the sandbox. And we are actually encouraging fintechs from both Sweden as well as APIX, those who are on APIX, to join this journey and see how we can create this solution for tier 2, tier 3 banks. So that's from my side. I'll stop share and then we can look at Q&A. Yeah.
And just wanted to add, sorry to jump in between. Just wanted to have Rajiv. I think it's a great showcase of how these two countries can come together to create something, provide that initial platform to actually create a ready-to-use prototype which can be productionized very, very quickly. How APIX can play that very critical role. And APIX, in its true form as a not-for-profit entity supported by regulators and World Bank, etc., works very actively with a host of multilateral agencies. Now, this product has a huge sell point, especially the mid-tier, the small-tier banks who do not have this capacity to do on their own. It's a huge capacity building exercise, and I would encourage all our ecosystem partners to come and contribute to it in some way or the other. Thanks. Thanks,
Manish. I think that's the intent is that, we have started out with these fintechs, some from Sweden and some from APIX. And our intent is that once we have a kind of a collaboration of these fintechs creating this prototype, I mean, this could become an evolving story. I mean, we could have version 1, which has a certain amount of functionality, and there could be these 6 to 7 fintechs. We could have a next version 2, where other fintechs who have seen this and are keen to join this journey, they can come in and we can add that functionality. So it's an evolving story, but it's a journey that we want to take so that the beneficiaries are the tier 2 and tier 3 banks who will not be able to do this on their own independently. That's the whole intent.
Thank you, Manish. Before we start the next sessions, a quick note on from our side that our chairman and founder of Findec, Mats, he could not join the meeting today. Yet he has initiated this partnership and the project with between Findec and AFIN as we're speaking right now. And he will also involve with the project along the way as well. And yeah, so now we're gonna start the Q&A sessions. If you have any questions, Tom, Manish, and Rajiv are here to answer them today. And because we are running out of time as well, if you still have many questions, you can also reach out to us via emails after the sessions. I would like to start first with a question from Timana. How do we access European markets for fintech through APIX and Findec?
Let me try and answer that. Although neither do I represent the SFA or the Findec. First thing that you could do, Timana, is to join both the organizations to be updated of what's happening on the Findec side of things, as well as on the Singapore Fintech Association side of things. I'm sure it doesn't cost much. And these are both great sources of information. The next best thing that you could do is join APIX. If you're Series B and below, APIX is free for you for a period of 12 months with absolutely free access to every part, like any other contributing paying member. And be part of our conversations as they happen from time to time. Keep your profile updated 100%. We have seen a lot of financial institutions who reach out to me or to Jean or to our teams saying that, I was trying to look for the Fintech XYZ. Unfortunately, I could not see much of it because the profile was incomplete. And APIX being a global platform, we have financial institutions from the DBSs and the cities of the world to very small rural banks. And I hope you find what you're looking for.
Tom, would you like to add anything on behalf of Findec? How can we help a company to enter European market?
Yeah, sure. I can give you an answer to that. No, I mean, we have a pretty, extensive network here in Sweden and in the Nordics. So of course, if there are any, specific requests, we will, try to handle them as best as we can, because we're sitting on a number of connections. So that's sort of what we can do. But of course, it depends very much on what's being asked. Thank you.
Thank you. The next questions I have is that does it cost anything to be part of the prototype project that Rajiv just mentioned? Rajiv, would you like to share some information on that?
Let's look at the two components. One is joining APIX. Okay, so as Manish mentioned, if you are a fintech that is less than Series B or below Series B, then it's free to join APIX, so there is no cost. Then once you join APIX, you are free to reach out to us, and we will look at where you fit in the digital journey for the bank, and we'll be happy to slot you in. There is no cost for joining the prototype or the POC, but you will have to dedicate some tech resources, because there will be a few meetings, integration meetings, as you will appreciate. We'll have to get together and say, how does this fintech work with the other fintech? How do these APIs work? What are the calls you have to make? How does the testing, integration, all this stuff work? So there will be a few planning meetings, there will be a few discussion design meetings, and there'll be a few testing meetings. So you'll have to dedicate these resources over a period of time. This is not going to happen quickly. We are going to probably start, in July after the summer break in Europe. So there will be time commitment, and there's no charge to join the prototype or the POC, but time commitment is there. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajiv. I just want to check if there's any question from the audience as well today. Yes, I can see a question from Victor. How can fintech companies scale and find new consumer market outside of their home country using APIX and other services?
Yep.
I think that's a good question to open up to 3 panelists today. Yeah.
Victor, let me try and answer that. So we, as a platform, as a neutral platform, provide a global audience to all our members, right? So earlier, I think the missing part so far was that to get discovered, you were totally dependent. So if I was running a digital bank before my current profile here in APIX, I was running a digital bank in Vietnam. Prior to that, multiple engagements in India. My ability to find a fintech, which Victor was running, was limited to the point of what my friends and family would tell me. If I call them and I say, I'm looking for somebody who can help me do better credit decisioning, for example. It would be dependent on what that other person on the other side of the call will tell me, right? APIX has essentially democratized and taken away that part of my understanding being limited to what the other guy knows, right? APIX has essentially given a platform for financial institutions to come and discover, and for fintechs to get discovered, right? We cannot commit whether you will come on board and somebody will find you tomorrow morning. No, I don't think that is going to happen, and I don't know if it will happen or not. But what I can commit for you is that you will be as relevant as any other guy in your domain, right? We don't really push any case in front of any bank who reaches out to us. So it's a very fair way of being identified, and not being on APIX, you lose that opportunity. I mean, it's not much to lose, but if you were to think about it, it could be a lot to lose.
Thank you, Manish. Rajiv and Tom, would you like to add anything to these questions?
So just a quick one. I think the value, what Manish is trying to say is the value that you get from APIX is much more than what you would be doing in terms of marketing your own systems in your own in your own countries or regionally. The value that APIX brings is that it gives you exposure all of a sudden to so many markets and so many players and so many financial institutions, as well as multiple fintechs who complement your solution. And so that's where the synergy comes in. That's where we call it the network effect. That's what the network effect happens. And that's really the value of APIX. And I would strongly encourage all fintechs, whether from Sweden or from other parts of the world, to join APIX, because this is what we can do. And the sandbox is included. All the APIs that are on the APIX platform are included. We can use those APIs without any charge to create these prototypes. And it's really a fun way to create an app for the public good. So I think it's a really nice platform, and if you are a Series B and below, it's free for the fintechs. But there are many Series B and above, Series C and D, who have also joined APIX, and they are seeing great value in APIX as well. So I think the whole concept of driving value for your fintech is through the APIX platform, and that's really key. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I agree both with Manish and Rajiv. It's as I mentioned before, from the Swedish side, I think it's really important to sort of, show ourselves the sort of technology that we have here that, of course, a lot of the big Asian markets have no idea about, because we're so focused on our home market or around Europe. So, this is the first step to sort of engage with Asia and also to learn from other players in the market. So I think there's both the sort of like one side would be for the companies to understand more about Asia and how to work with Asian companies and sort of being in the Asian culture. The second thing would be also to sort of showcase what we can do here in Sweden. Because even if we think that we're quite well known, it's in outside of in the big world, a lot of these pretty well-known companies in this market are pretty unknown in Asia. So it's a lot about getting business intelligence and learning from both sides, and also vice versa, to work from Asian companies to understand more about what's going on here in Europe. And since Sweden is doing really well in specifically in fintech and financial services, I think there's great opportunities to collaborate. Findec is not like APIX. We're not sort of like a European player. Findec is mainly a Swedish fintech hub, but we do have, connections, of course, with other hubs in Europe as well. So this is, a great first step to engage with Southeast Asia, because eventually the Swedish FinTechs have to go to Asia anyway to become a global player, because that is, as I said before, the fastest growing market in the world. So if you don't engage now, you still have to do that in a couple of years, and I think it's going to be even more competitive in a few years. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. I think we're running out of time. So thank you everyone who participated today. If you have any questions, if you are interested in participating in this prototype project, please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.